to enjoy two new topics from our two new wonderful speakers that will share them and have the experience of those topics firsthand. Definitely, we are excited to hear from this persons with regards to the topic that they chose to share to the community right now. And we are live via YouTube and Facebook as well. And we really appreciate your time for joining in or tuning in our live sessions. So for the first topic for today, we have India and global order. So as India turns 75, its place in the Asian century, it is evolving and expanding. So India has played a key role in molding this decade and setting the course of the decades to come. So only asinine evaluations of a future global order at the turn of the century would disregard this. So in the extreme VUCA world, this session aims to understand the foreign policy of the fastest growing and fifth largest economy in the world. And to deliver this topic, we have Ankit Baptani, which is a TEDx speaker and a member of the United Nations Civil Society and has addressed United Nations Human Rights and Council and Security Council. And he is LGBT rights activist who strongly believes in India's story for the global good. And without further ado, let's give it a hand to Ankit Baptani.
Namaste, everyone. Thank you so much for having me. It's such a pleasure and honor to be with all of you today. So yeah, you're rightly said that I strongly believe in India's story. And the reason I believe in India's story is for various reasons. Let me start by giving an example. When I meet my friends from Europe or America, and when they come to India, they find it very chaotic. If any one of you have been to India, I'm sure you might be able to relate with what I'm talking about. That it's quite chaotic. Well, if I take you to a small streets in Varanasi or in Vrindavan or any small town in India, on the street you will find a big fancy car. At the same time, you will find a bicycle, a pedestrian, and a cow, all of them traveling together at one point of time. For a Western eye or a non-Indian eye, this may look quite chaotic. I hear you. But there is a pattern to it. Whose road it is a basic question we try to address by it. Is the road only to us who are walking on the path? Or it can also belong to the cow, who is also habitat of that area. When I talk about India's story, I am reflecting on last 75 years. India just celebrated its 75th Independence Day. And this time, or 25 years from now, till we turn 100, we are calling it as Amrit Kal, a time of nectarian development. And in this, when I look back in last 75 years, India has proven multiple prediction incorrect. We have seen worst of the famine in last 75 years. We have seen extreme poverty, extreme hunger, terrorism, and so many other natural disasters. At each point of time, the experts and intellectuals around the world predicted that this is not the case in which India would be able to survive. But somehow we came out of it. And this skill set of coming out of such kind of a crisis in our own unique way. And there's a word for in Hindi which has been accommodated and accepted by Oxford Dictionary. It's called as jugaad. So this jugaad mentality, the core jugaad mentality of Indians and Indianness is what makes me believe in India's story. So today we are going to talk in next 30 minutes, conversation around India's foreign policy and how India can be the accelerator for the global good from the foreign policy and international relations perspective.
Yes, definitely. Thank you so much for that little overview of like the story that you mean. But like, can we ask you like how are India's experiences as it celebrates its 75th birthday, and why do you strongly believe in the India story?
So as I rightly pointed out that no matter what challenges were thrown at India in last 75 years, we were able to overcome it. We were able to survive, and not only survive, we were able to grow and develop ourselves, right? we just left UK behind in terms of an economy. Currently, we are a 3 trillion economy, and we are going to be a 5 trillion economy in coming few years, right? And all of these changes you see has been slowly, steadily, but persistent towards one direction, that is the upliftment of the common people. Sometimes few examples which become so common and regular for us that we don't even acknowledge. Let me give an example. Especially during the pandemic, was a time for us to reflect on how a governance of a respective country can deliver. India give took on a challenge of world's biggest vaccination program, and have given jabs to 2 billion jabs have been delivered in the arms of Indians, right? 200 crore vaccination jabs. And I'm deliberately using the vaccination jab on the arms of Indians is because there are countries who are able to produce vaccines. There are countries to whom vaccines have been delivered, but there are countries who have got the vaccine at the airport, but because of their own inabilities in supply chain and mechanism, they are not able to vaccinate their own people. India, in last 3 years, has supported over 100 countries in terms of with their COVID indigenous developed COVID vaccines. Out of these 100 countries, around 15 countries to whom India gave the vaccine for free as a gift gesture were not able to utilize it 100% because they did not have enough mechanism to give the jabs to their own citizens, even after getting the vaccine for free. Right. So I feel, and this is just one example. Another example I can think of is India is able to feed during the COVID has fed millions of people in the country with free ration. The population of that can be double of a Germany. India has given a housing scheme. Currently, it runs a housing scheme wherein the whole of a Japan can be given housing at a low cost. And out of even within this, most of the owner of this housing scheme are women or are the co-owner of it. So when we talk about the global goals of the United Nations, India is able to contribute huge towards it until and unless Asian countries do not contribute, unless and until African countries do not contribute, we will not be able to achieve SDGs 30s. And when I look at this from a larger perspective, I strongly see and believe that what we were able to do in last 75 years, what we were able to do in last 8 to 10 years, and what we were able to do, especially in last 3 years during the pandemic, makes me believe in the India story.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for that smooth. You have shared too much of like it's something that you might have experienced firsthand. Like it's a story that you have unfolded. Now, let me focus on the foreign policy of India. You mentioned, or it says that you're part of like BRICS, BRICS, Quad, SEO, and G20, and are invited to G7. So for outsiders like myself, this is very confusing. So can you help us decode on this part?
Yes, absolutely. And I hear you that for foreign policy observers who are outside India, it may be confusing that at one go we are at one side we are part of BRICS, wherein we are with China, Russia. We have a trilateral with China, Russia, and India. At the same time, we are part of Quad, wherein we are with Japan, Australia, US, and India. We are also part of I2U2 and all other acronyms you just mentioned. But what we really need to understand is that when India comes to a global platform, it is not alone which is coming to the global platform. Of course, when India comes to the global platform or various forums like these, it is talking about its personal internal interest first, no doubt about it. But at the same time, we are also becoming the voice of so many other nations who are really struggling to make their voices heard. Currently, during the United Nations General Assembly, our foreign minister had met over 70 foreign ministers from global south, right? Which tells us a certain story that no matter what the crisis the world is facing, of course, the pandemic and the COVID vaccine distribution, I have already talked about. But even we looked at in the time of Afghanistan crisis, and even after that, India has been one of the largest contributor in terms of humanitarian aid to people of Afghanistan currently. And India's development portfolio ranges from various developmental projects in Africa, which talks about, which touches sanitation, water's distribution, clean water accessibility, gender equity, to infrastructure projects in and around Indian Ocean, right? So we are, when we come to a forum which are multilateral, we bring in India's interest, at the same time the global South interest. And for an outsider, it may be confusing, but people whose voices are not being heard in the global conversation of which with so much of chaos, India gives that hope.
Thank you. Wonderful. So, and the next one is like there is a like quite discomfort with India's position on the Russia-Ukraine war in the West previously. So, can India's position be justified with logic?
It's quite funny that many times we have been asked this question about India's position on Russia-Ukraine conflict, war, or special operation, whichever word you prefer to use it for it. As our foreign minister have stated that we buy oil in a month equal to Europe buying oil in just one afternoon. But because these comments are publicly available, I'll not go into it. Let me take your attention to a small incident which happened way before the Russia-Ukraine conflict, and that is when the US invaded Iraq. So during the Iraq war, there was a debate in Indian parliament, and there were parliamentarians who were opposed to US intervention in Iraq. Even this time, when the Russia-Ukraine conflict happened, there was a conversation, but not even a single parliamentarian, irrespective of the party line, did not raise a question on India's neutrality at the conflict. That is something for us to reflect upon, that why India and no parliamentarian in a democracy raised its voice against India's neutrality. Because we understand that India's historical connection with the Russia, when nobody was there to help India in terms of arms, in terms of security, and so on and so forth, Russia was there for us. At the same time, we cannot leave Russia when it needs the partners the most. But interesting fact to note is that people in media and in general global strategic conversation talk about India's abstention at various UN resolutions on Russia and Ukraine conflict. But what I want you to take your attention is towards our voting, but at the same time, our words. If you see that India's voting may be abstention, but our statements as explanation of these votes is very critical of Russia. During all of the UN resolutions related to Russia-Ukraine war, wherein we have actively talked about that we believe in territorial integrity. And let me end by one more point, and we can go to a next question. And that is, can you tell me a single foreign leader or a head of a state who in last 1 year, since the conflict started, or ever since there was indications towards this conflict, had guts to sit next to the Putin? Many world leaders have met Putin in last 1 year, in last 12 months, including most of the Western leaders. But who had ability to tell face to Putin that this is not time of the war. This is time for the peace. Only the Indian leadership were able to do it. And we were able to do it because of our access to Russian Federation. So I think that there are multiple layers to our foreign relations with Russia, and which needs to be taken into consideration while making any strategic judgments about this conversation, and not looking at only the United Nations resolution on this conflict.
Already. So since you've mentioned, or after talking about Russia, we can look at another pain point of the world. So we know there are tensions in China which lead to the loss of lives in the border clash in Galwan Wali. So we have seen like quote strong statements coming off Delhi in the past 2 years. So how do you see India's relations with China? And because we have limited time, can you cover the relationship between new global order and rise of China?
Yeah, sure. So what happened in Galwan Valley cannot be looked into isolation. And I like that you mentioned China as a pain point. Indeed, it is. We are not certainly at our highest peak of our relation currently with the China, just like any other world. We are also suffering. But the Galwan Valley incident, wherein we lost number of soldiers during the conflict, that small conflict, is not an isolation case. 2 years ago, before that as well, there was a conflict on the border, wherein and that example is quite new for any foreign policy textbook, from a point of view of when China came to the conflicted zone between India and China border region. They started building the permanent infrastructure. That infrastructure were broken down by Indian Army, dismantled all of their machinery, and came back to the pre-decided line of LOC, LSC. Nowhere we have seen that kind of act done by a foreign country, or especially towards China, because China has almost border conflict with all of its neighbor, right? From South China Sea to its north region to its east region. But only India was able to do it. So this needs to be looked into the continuation of that. So I hear you that we have our conflict. We currently have banned over 60 Chinese apps. But what gives hope, and because we want to talk about China and linking with the global narrative and African region as well, what really gives a hope is how India was able to deliver 5G to its population. Just last week, we launched our 5G in 5 big cities in the country, and we aim to enable 5G throughout the country by end of next year, 2023. What is interesting for us to, or global policy observers to notice here, is that India banned the Chinese technology of 5G just year and a half ago or 2 years ago. In a short span of time, India was able to generate and develop its own indigenous technology and deliver it to its people, right? US took much longer time to do the same. And any other country in the world which has the 5G capabilities right now have taken longer period of time to deliver the 5G to that people compared to what India were able to achieve in last 1.5 to 2 years of time. I remember having this conversation with a friend of mine from one of the small island nations who were present at the COP26. In the COP26, people started giving commitment towards net zero carbon footprint. And the rich countries of the world committed $100 billion to these poor nations so they can invest in the technology and green transition. How many dollars have been really delivered to these poor nations? Hardly any, not even a 50% last I checked. So this friend of mine was telling me that, Ankit, do you know, when people, especially the powerful nations in the world, push us to give net zero commitments to the global platform and commit this money to us and not deliver, the only way out for us to go green is to go Beijing. The only way for us to go digital is to go Beijing. So unless and until democracy starts to deliver, we will not be able to counter the China model, what we are seeing currently. The democracies cannot be limited to organizing a global conferences on the democracies, but democracies will work when it starts delivering to its commitment. And that is something we need to reflect as a democratic world. And there lies the answer to how to counter China.
So what you're saying is that like the world is known, or the world as known will change with the rise of China, and we need to be mindful of it. So, but does like the private sector agree, or like When China is the biggest market for many companies, how should the government deal with it?
I hear you, because the only way to counter China cannot be limited to governance, and a private sector needs to be involved. And it is absolutely a great challenge where most of the Western countries see China as their market, wherein most of their profit comes from the Chinese market. How do we balance it? And then the answer to that is very simple. The governance needs to have the carrot and stick, right? Most of the Western countries, especially the European countries, have completely forgotten the sticks part of its governance model, and they've only looked at the carrot part, right? They have earned revenues after revenues after revenues after revenues by engaging with China. And even today, if you go to Europe, you will hear these conversations on how do we talk with China? How do we discuss with China when they are a strategic threat? Like, hello, you don't talk to your strategic threats. You need to counter your strategic threats. So how to counter China and how do we involve the private sector is a question for not only the governance, but also political leadership. It is not the conversation of the value-based world order, but it is also about the strategy interest-based world order. When I go to Europe, I'm tired of hearing the conversations around the value-based conversation, a value-based world order. It is almost like asking, when a house is on a fire and a firefighter gets into that house to save life, if that firefighter missed to ask your preferred gender pronouns in the process to save you, it is completely fine. You can have the conversation about your preferred gender pronouns once you are saved from that fire. So value-based world order is a beautiful conversation to have, wherein we can have all 170 nations, part of United Nations, agree to something, including private sector, to counter the disruption. But I think today is not the time to do that. The governance model, the political leadership of respective countries needs to use the stick along with the carrot, which they have unfortunately forgotten in past few years.
I see. That's perfect. So, I'll not talk much about the China and things. So I'll just skip and talking something positive. Definitely. So, what does G20 offer to the world, and what does India's presidency of G20 offer to the world?
Well, G20 comes with very exciting opportunity for the global order, in my understanding. Look, G20 started in 2008 after financial crisis, and it saved the world from the Great Depression, which it was going towards, right? After that, if we look at the achievement of G20, there are not much. Of course, there are some in terms of economic area, in terms of socio-economic areas. But I think this particular incident, the way the Russia-Ukraine conflict, the food crisis, the fuel crisis has given energy to almost cold, irrelevant NATO. The same way, I think the current crisis have given another opportunity or another life to G20 forum. And in that scenario, when India hosts its presidency, we can look towards answering the important questions which we are which the world is facing. Look, when you hear the word COVID, people get scared. When you hear the word conflict, including terrorism, people get scared. I'm happy to share that G20 is not the platform for it. G20 is primarily focused on economic engines and economical development, and how do we make our economies of the world work quicker to deliver the development of our own collective population is so what G20 looks towards. Second point to that question is, look, the United Nations has become almost irrelevant and it's too big to manage currently. G7 is too small to address some of the global financial questions. I2, U2, Quad, all of these have their own limitations. The only forum which is not too big to manage or too small to be irrelevant is the G20 forum. And that's why I have a great hope in terms of G20. We look forward to the Indonesia's presidency, which is current presidency, and a leader summit, which is scheduled in Bali for the month of November. And what outcomes comes out of it will lead towards India's presidency. And I have a great hope and aspirations for it, because we have already scheduled around 200 events around G20 at India across the country, and we look forward to welcoming all of you there.
Thank you so much, and yeah, that's really something to look forward to. And yeah, so we have a few minutes until like the actual um, time allotment for the first topic, but definitely we would like to open the question as well to our attendees and some of the panelists if they have some insights or anything they'd like to say or interact with our speaker Ankit. And while we are waiting, well, for those who would like to ask, just open your mic or raise your hand so we can recognize. And then while waiting for them, like let us know if like how we can or how participants or attendees can reach out to you in case if they want to do some offline collaborations.
Yes, so my socials are very easy. Citizen Ankit, CITIZENANKIT, on all the social media platforms, on Instagram @Ankit, Citizen Ankit, Twitter Citizen Ankit, LinkedIn /Citizen Ankit is my socials. So you can feel free to reach out. Yeah.
Hey, thank you,
Are there
Ankit.
any questions in the chat? You can have a look, or
Yeah. So Ankit, this is Ravi. Nice connecting with you. Very thought-provoking, discussions. Love your background. Very different than any backgrounds that I've seen on Zoom till date. But yeah, I really love the conversation. So thanks for being here. And before we get on to Sunita's session and other questions for Ankit, I just want to announce to the rest of the team here that if you're a startup enthusiast, we do have ATM Sports, which is a startup from India, which is presenting after Sunita's talk in next 30 minutes. So they're doing a pitch. We're going to have some investors joining in, and so if you're really interested to see the latest Stock Kids version of Shark Tank, you can stay back after the webinar and then listen to how the pitch is going. So it's a sports performance intelligence platform where they're trying to get athletes, every common sports person, whether they have good references back up or not, they want to ensure that they're competing with the world records, and then getting better with sports science and technology. So yeah, back to you, Phil. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ravi. So yeah, would there be or anyone would like to share content or something that they have in their minds? Feel free to interact.
Okay, yeah, sure. Thanks, Ankit. It was very nice, confident, and good presentation about what's going back in India. And it was like Eng Jay Shankar was speaking in the forum. So it was pretty nice to hear that. And one thing that I could probably say is the world is looking towards India, right, in terms of engaging or stopping this war, where they're not, most of the leaders are looking towards India, that how they can mediate and try to engage both the leaders on the other side, so that they bring this war to an halt. So what's the steps that you think that India is currently taking in order to mitigate that?
What steps India's are taking in terms of conflict resolution is your question?
Yes.
There was some. Okay. Well, look, not directly in terms of conflict resolutions, but when and where India is asked to mediate, we have given our contribution towards it. So for an example, last month, if you see, there was a request to India by foreign countries under the leadership of United Nations to get the wheat out from the Ukraine territory. right? And then we saw that there was a safe passage given to wheat to move out of Ukraine, so that it can be delivered to many countries, especially in the Africa, who were in the brink of the food crisis. So we have given that the facilitation between the Ukrainian and Russian side. Another example can be that in terms of citizen vaccination, it's not only the diplomats, but even the top leadership of India has spoken directly to Zelensky as well as Putin. Create that buffer zone so that not only the Indian citizens, but all the students of other countries can also be rescued and rescued out of it. In the history, I failed to find a second example in which a country which has evacuated 20,000 plus its own citizen and other country citizen with only one case of casualty. And that is also that guy, that poor guy was just went out to buy bread and was hit by a missile. Otherwise, even he could have been with us today. So we are not, as far as I know, we are not involved in terms of conflict resolution between Russia and Ukraine as much as Turkey is currently. But they have their own limitations. So whenever we are asked to do some special operations in terms of keeping larger humanity interest in mind, we are doing that.
That's great. Thanks, Ankit. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Alrighty. So yeah, as I mentioned, you can reach out to Ankit definitely in his socials if you wish to have further interactions with him. So Ankit, thank you so much for delivering us that wonderful session with the topic you have chose to share to the world. So moving on, definitely, we have.
Namaste. Bye-bye.
Thank you. And yes, for the next topic, yes, we are a little short of a few minutes, but definitely we'll definitely be able to cover this one up. So the next topic up in the sleeve is 7C's of successful communication, harmony, and peace in families. So this is really valuable information that we can get from this topic. So seven simple, powerful, profound steps in the right sequence to maximize family happiness and success communication. Like everyone right now is kind of very busy, and since the pandemic has just ended, maybe barely, but yes, definitely family is still important, and communication is really important as well. So here with us, Sunita will deliver this topic for us. She is a parent teen coach of global repute, passionately coaching parents, teenagers, and women for over a decade and helping them create an empowering life balance in multiple areas of life. So including the attitude to commit, create, cherish, and celebrate life to the fullest potential. Without further ado, let's give it to Sunita to cover this topic.
Thank you so much, Phil. Namaste and welcome to all of you who are on the session today. Let me share my PPT.
Yes.
Okay, I welcome all of you to the 7C's of family communication, but in context, I would like to share about my journey. I'm a parent and teen coach. I have been working with parents, children, teenagers, preteens, young adults, and I have been having closer conversations with individuals and also the members of the same family. And this has been one of my favorite relevant topics I understood over the years, that as much as the work success is important, the work communication is important, the family communication also is very, very important, but most of us fail in managing family communication with ease. So here, because we have a very short slot, I will be talking crisply, explaining certain basic concepts in sequence. And here is what I'll be sharing about the imagination part. And I would request all of you to close your eyes. Some of you might be parents, some of you are youngsters, but I would still want you to imagine your family with your parents or your siblings or your extended family with your eyes closed. Think of each member of your family and see which person's image brings smile on your face and also warmth, and also the satisfaction that I am heard, I'm seen, and I'm understood. Now, same way, when you think of certain members of your family, certain emotions get aroused, like anger sometimes frustration, helplessness. And this all, the context is all about the communication patterns which are happening between two members of the same family or multiple members of the same family. While saying so, I would also want you to imagine, how does your dream family look like? What are the components you would like to see in your family, amongst the members of your family, like the joyous conversations, the ability to listen deeply, the ability to express without any inhibitions. So what is it like to have that sort of a dream family? And why this has become my favorite topic is, over so many conversations, I realized that parents struggle with the children sometimes, and children struggle with the parents sometimes, and sometimes the siblings also struggle with each other in terms of their own perception of how they are seeing the other members of the family. So coming to the main title, what is communication? Communication is reciprocal exchange of information, ideas, facts, opinions, beliefs, and attitudes. Now, if the communication has to be really effective, then whenever the communication is happening between two people, it has to be successful in producing a desired result. And also, it should be successful in exchanging the proper information between two people. So often people who came to me for coaching always said that, hey, the communication in our home is very bad and we are struggling to communicate. And then I realized that though you want to enhance the communication, sometimes it is not the communication first, it is the step one, which is the connection. So now most of us are so busy, so occupied with our work, and now survival to thriving, the journey is very different. Few people are in the survival mode, few people are in the thriving mode, but still everybody is in quite a bit of rush. And there is no time to connect. And whatever the people find that our communication is excellent in my office or outside at work, that is not the same in some families where it is coming to the point one connection and point two communication. So they will be wondering that I'm a very fantastic communicator outside, everybody gets me, but I do not know this doesn't work at home. So I would say the precursor to communication, and whatever the success of communication we are looking at family, the step one is connection. So quickly, we'll take just 1 minute to again close our eyes and understand what is the level of connection you experience with each person of your family. On a scale of 0 to 10, what is the connection you experience with your spouse? And similarly, what is the connection the spouse experiences with you? Or what is the connection you experience with your child? Or what is the connection your elder child experiences with the younger sibling? So you will be very surprised to know that sometimes our connection might be higher, but if I were to ask the other family member, they might be completely giving a different answer, that the mother says my connection with the child is 9, but the child says my connection with the mother is 2. Vice versa. So when people came to me to understand the communication, I would ask them the first question, what is the level of communication you experience with your family members? So in order to connect with the family members, definitely we need time and also we need intention. But in such a rush, we would be moving in the day. When I inquired a lot of people, the exchange of sentences between the parent and the child is sometimes less than 3 lines or 10 lines. But there are many, many blessed families also where the connection is very great and deeper. But there are certain families where people really struggle to connect. So I would recommend all of you, and also I follow the same thing in my family as well. How do I take time to connect with every member of my family? And now we move on to the second factor, communication. As I said, it has to go in a way that it is giving a desired outcome. So let me dwell a little more on this particular step. So what are the advantages of being a great communicator? So if we are having good communication skills, then automatically the trust in the family members is more, and a lot of problems can be resolved, and there is clarity in communication, and the relationships are more joyful and better, and there is constant engagement between people, meaning to say there is very less disconnect versus the closeness. And also overall, the family also becomes more productive and promotes togetherness and collaboration. But similarly, if the communication was very bad, then there are a lot of other things to be dealt with. The whole energy goes in dealing with the negativity or toxicity of the home. And more than the problem solving, more and more issues keep surfacing in the home. So I would quickly ask you to recognize who are the 3 best communicators in your circle or in your home out of your 4 family members or 3 family members or even 6 family members. I want you to rank who is that person in your family who ranks in the best communicator ladder, who is very, very impactful and also helping in multiple aspects of the family dynamics. So the process of communication is like this. There is a sender, there is a receiver, and sender is sending the message. And there is also a channel. Channel means face-to-face or phone or email. There are multiple ways we can send the messages. And there is a receiver who is receiving the message, but the receiver is not exactly decoding the way the sender is sending. Because of which we always wonder, even though I speak well, even though I tell nicely, even though I ask my child very well, I do not know, he yells at me, he does not receive properly, or he's always pushing me away, or he's making faces and he's throwing the phone at me. There's so many kind of statements I have heard from the parents, especially from the receiver's point of view and also the sender's point of view. So what happens is, even though sometimes the sender is sending a beautiful message through the right channel, the receiver might be receiving it in a different way because of these barriers of communication. There'll be so many barriers: the lens, the thought process, the attitude, the receptivity of the receiver totally changes the dynamics of the communication process. So this is a simple example of what all things we need to work on and also help our family members to enhance each and every parameter so that it's a beautiful experience for all of us. And life is beautiful when the relationships, when the conversations are very beautiful, meaningful, and we are growing, we are enjoying creating new things. But if the communication is bad and pathetic, every person in that relationship suffers. And there are multiple communication styles, and we will not be able to have an elaborate conversation here. When some of the people in the families are condensers basically have very limited conversations, whereas the amplifiers, they are having very, very elaborate conversations. So under the communication styles, you need to understand who is the condenser type, who is the amplifier type, and competitive. Sometimes everybody in the family are fighting against how good they are, how best they are, but affiliative people are always cooperating and also toning down to accommodate everybody. And in the communication style, some people are very polite and asking in a better way not to hurt, but some people are very, very blunt in the conversation. Some people are like hot mirchi. Everything they have to say, it has to be very, very spicy and very, very hot. And there are certain people who are very, very cool and very cold. Even in the moments of hurry, they are so cold, in the sense very, very late in their communication style. So we need to understand which person is having which communication. And what kills the communication in a family is extreme criticism, contempt, defensiveness, stonewalling. So some of us, other people are putting the effort, but we might not be lending our ears a heart to listen, or we are continuously fighting, or we are putting ourselves in the defensive mode. So all these parameters are the communication killers. And how the communication, the sender should send the message is basically the message should be concrete. It should be very courtesy oriented. It should be correct. It has to have clarity. The message should have confidence. It has to be concise, and it has to be coherent. So these are the couple of things we all can look at enhancing in the communication model, because of which the relationship seems to be very respectful, safe, and also transparent, and with boundaries, and nobody's overriding others. So the second factor of the communication step is very, very important for all of us to enhance and also help our family members who struggle in that process. Some of us could be natural best communicators, but some of us really struggle in expression or in communicating, so we can enhance our family members' communication. Now, coming to the third aspect, what happens is when a person is continuously judging anybody, they cannot operate from compassion. So when we are having the compassion in our heart that there is other human being who is struggling, maybe who is not showing the best side of himself or herself, we would be able to empathize and help them in building their communication skills. So when we are having this compassionate mindset, it is coming from kindness to look at the other person and help the process. So a person, when I was working with the families, I would ask, what is the compassion quotient in your family? So sometimes some families mention that one child is more compassionate, but the other child is not, or spouse is not compassionate. So I help them enhance the compassion quotient in the family, which will be very great in enhancing the step 5, which is the cooperation part. And step 4 is called care. So most of us have this thought process that I'm important, I'm unique, but now that is also causing a lot of problem, because unless their needs are met, they are not supporting the other people. Like imagine in a family, if the mother is sick, sometimes the children cannot recognize that mother is sick or father is really stressed or there is work stress. The children are very, very busy in their own phones. They can't even recognize what is happening with the other member of the family. So building the culture of care. Caring means like, just asking, how are you doing? Or what is happening in your life? Or what are the goals you're trying to accomplish? Or simply, giving some of your favorite books to them, or a simple handwritten note or appreciation. So to show that I really care for you and you're important in my life. So that is missing out, because everybody is busy and everybody is self-occupied in their own ways of either entertainment or goals. It is becoming very, very difficult for all the family members to really experience the care of other family members. So while we are focusing on connection, communication, these 2 factors are very important, that the family builds the culture of compassion and care. That is when the 5th component gets elicited, and that is cooperation. Now, what happens is, since mother is busy, father is busy, the elder one is busy, younger one is busy, everybody is busy, the lot of conflicts come, especially in doing the household work or taking up extra responsibility when there is a demand of that particular work or anything. And all the time, the siblings will be fighting, saying that, hey, you're not giving any work to the elder one and you're always pulling me in because I'm more listening kind of a kid. And there is a lot of resentment which develops between 2 or 3 people or all the 4 people, especially when this cooperation element is not built right from the very younger years. Now, when the cooperation component is really at a very, very optimal level, lot of the family concerns, lot of the family problems can be addressed, because every member has learned to develop this attitude of how can I help the person who is really struggling, because of which all the communication becomes impactful, connection becomes impactful, compassion becomes impactful, care becomes impactful, cooperation. So often I ask all my clients, tell me who is the person in your home who gives you the maximum cooperation. So sometimes it is only one member in the family, sometimes it's none, sometimes there are all the 3 members are giving cooperation. Sometimes, like, there is no cooperation between any family member, and it becomes like really hell in the family, because all the time the conflicts are high when the cooperation is very, very low. So as we are increasing the cooperation component in the home, automatically the conflicts are lessening, because they are able to resolve all the problems which are coming up in the family, and that too in the different phases of the growth of the child, like pre-teen ages. Sometimes some children are very shy, sometimes children are very outgoing. Sometimes I've seen where the girls commented that my mother does not give freedom and I have to operate according to her ideas. So freedom wise, responsibility wise, and taking care of extra chores at the home, lot of things basically can be addressed when we increase the cooperation component of the home. Now what happens is, the most important section is the correction part. Now if we point out something, then the child gets upset, or if we praise one child, the other child will be very, very depressed or demotivated. And sometimes a person naturally has the capacity to appreciate everybody and go and ask the family members, hey, can you tell me, what do I correct? Where do you think that I need correction? And very rarely people ask. Now you have to identify in your family who is the person who is taking that extra care to really put the right thought process into the person who needs the help, or correcting the one parameter which is very, very important for them. So in certain families where there are no corrections, what happens is everybody is happy because nobody is correcting them, but there is a piled up accumulation of the wrong steps, and it becomes, suddenly it surfaces after 5-7 years, and everybody wonders, why didn't we correct this? Because nobody corrected. And if everybody wants to correct, then they have the risk of being ridiculed by other people that you're very negative. So if anybody is correcting us to be on the right path or in the right direction, trust me, it is like a boon. And we can build in this culture of correction phase into the family by asking every family member, even your spouse or your child or younger child, asking, what correction do you think I need to work on? Or you can tell them what is that correction they need to work on. So what happens is, this is one of the most important steps, and a lot of them do not follow, or they follow the correction model by ridiculing or putting them down or yelling, shaming, and being very, very frustrated, or sometimes having like a silent Cold War. They don't talk, but they're very angry and upset. So if we can slowly work on these steps, correction also really becomes very, very easy in the family. So in case you have a child who is having very, very bad aggressive communication pattern, or very high anger skills, where they're very, very angry for no reason, instead of calming down skills, they have more angry skills, and for everything they get angry, everything they get frustrated. Or sometimes you might be having your spouse or child who is short-tempered, who cannot control themselves, who cannot calm themselves. So it becomes a hell for everybody in the home. So correction step is very, very important in every family, and correction becomes very easy when we already elicited the cooperation component in the family. Now, after this correction, then the next step is called the collaboration step. So every family member goes through this process of self-discovery, meaning to say, every person knows what they are, what they like, what they dislike, what are their values, what are they drawn to, what kind of a personality each one is. So everybody has discovered everybody. And in the process, what happens is, everybody knows that, hey, this is the goal of this person, or this is the aspiration of this person. And we are showing that I know about you, I know what you like, I know what you dislike, I know what are your strengths, and I also know what are your flaws or weaknesses which you need to build. And you are going and telling them, hey, you really are very bad in communication. Can you allow me to help? And I will help you on how to respond better, how to ask better, how to basically communicate better. So what happens is, instead of saying that you don't know how to talk, you are a very bad communicator, you are an angry person. So instead of saying one right thing, generally, some of us end up saying 10 wrong things instead of one right thing. And when we get into the collaboration model, what happens is, we can identify what habits or attitudes needs to be corrected in dad or mom or the elder one or the younger one. And it becomes a collaborative effect endeavor where everybody is helping each other to work on their flaws, strengthen their strengths, and accomplish their goals. And not only that, when this model is in place, all the steps are in a sequence. So communication cannot come before connection. Connection has to be there. Then only the communication is more impactful. So when we come into the collaboration mode, we are not dealing with day-to-day clutter daily, like, throwing tantrums at each other, yelling, shouting at others' shortcomings. And instead of using our brain in all of these areas, which does not require so much of our really the intelligence part of it, rather, when we are in the collaborative mindset, we know that everybody, we can support them, help them, and the productivity is very, very high. Meaning to say, all the energy is getting focused on the family growth or family success, family happiness, and a lot of creative ideas, a lot of innovations, a lot of amazing things can happen when the family reaches the collaborative mode. And it is also a very advantageous factor when every member of the family is growing and every member of the family is understood their own self-discovery process, their own self-mastery process, their own self-healing process, and their self-actualization process. Basically, whoever comes to me for coaching, I take them through this 4 modes: self-healing, self-discovery, self-mastery, and self-actualization. So what happens is, in the collaboration mode, every family member is going through all these 4 stages, and there is more joy, more peace, more happiness, more growth, more success. And you are recognizing who in your family is showing either 1 or 2 traits, or all the 4, or all the 7. So you are also educating every member of your family with these steps, and you say, hey, you're very good at showing compassion, or in our home, you are the person who brings out the maximum cooperation. So that way, what happens is the whole family's peace, harmony, and the communication parameters are established, and the success, growth, and joy factor is very, very high. So why I talk about these steps in sequences? These collaboration cannot happen without going through this cooperation process. Impossible, because they don't cooperate anyway. And every day it's going to be chaotic. And cooperation cannot happen when there is no connection and communication. So that is the reason I say that these are the steps in the right order: connection, communication, compassion, care, cooperation, correction, and collaboration. So that is how I start coaching all my clients to bring in these elements to help every family member. And there are a lot of communication myths which says that, hey, I love this person, and because I love, they understand when I communicate. That is what people think. But actually, there are a lot of myths which we all need to correct on. So I'll not be able to cover this because of the time factor. And also, we have these patterns in your own home. When you want to address an issue, one of the person can avoid the matter all the time. They'll escape from that conversations. They don't want to confront. And in your own family, there might be a child who is pleasing everybody, the mother, father, the sibling. And you also see somebody who is in the vacillating mode. Sometimes here, sometimes they're not sure of themselves, but they'll be having a lot of the emotional roller coasters. And also sometimes they are controlling the other family members, or also being in the victim mode. Some of these they would be playing. So we need to understand what we have to do with each member in case they're avoiding something, or in case they're over-pleasing. How do we bring that communication balance and also a deeper sense of balance within themselves? And we will come to the last slide, because I know I have to close by 10:30. What is the family vision you have? Do you and your family know what you want for your relationship? Do you have a vision for your goals and expectations now and for the future? Because the children are growing, the parents are growing. Every phase is a different phase, and the emotions are changing, thought process changing. So how do you communicate your expectations and goals to your family members? And create a relationship vision that will help you to navigate lives together. And also creating a mutual family vision, which gives us a roadmap for navigating certain important decisions and conflicts. And working on the vision together is an excellent communication exercise. So with this, I would say thank you for giving me this opportunity to share something very profound. This is nothing new or nothing great, but I believe in the basics. And I know these basics are very, very important for the family harmony and peace. And I know so many youngsters are on depression medication, anxiety medication, and it feels so sad that they don't have to go through that. So family well-being and also bringing in the principles of the masculine, feminine into every family. This is my vision and my mission, and that is what I'm helping the parents and teenagers, women with. So thank you so much for the opportunity.
Definitely, and we thank you so much as well for sharing us, like your passion, and definitely we have gathered a lot of insights through that. Like even though basic things, like it's those things that we tend to forget in some areas. Like even now, like I'm still taking uh like the house chores, the actual conflict with siblings. So it's never gonna took off. So it will always be there, and like we consider it as a bond, definitely when we are dividing house chores, because instead of fighting over it, so we just have to divide it. So yes, we're a little over the time, but definitely would like to have the attendees know how they can communicate with you in case they wish for like offline collaborations.
Yeah, yeah. I'll leave my phone number, contact number if anybody wants to get in touch with me to have an assessment about the family or the communication roadmap. Anything, I'm available to coach the parents or teenagers or moms, preteens, children. I'm ready to coach anybody, so they can reach out to me on the contact number I'll be sharing in the chat box.
Yes, we have here from Satya, amazing, simply solid thoughts to revisit some basics of life. Do you provide counseling?
I do coaching. Phil, can you hear me?
Yes, yes, I can. I can definitely. So it was a question. Yeah. Okay. So
Yeah.
Satya responded. Yeah. Yes, he said thank you, and he got it. So yeah, perfect. So yeah,
So
any
I'm
other
leaving my
questions?
contact number here. I'm leaving my contact number in the chat box here.
Okay. All right, that's perfect. And anyone would like to ask or share their insights before we close?
Thanks a lot, Sunita, for joining in at that short notice. I've attended other sessions or heard about your singing sessions, so maybe sometime we can do that. Whenever you're free. But this was definitely insightful. So thanks for being here.
Thanks. Thank you so much, Ravi. Thank you, Phil. Thanks for inviting me on this platform. Thank you very much.
It really is our pleasure inviting you here. Like you're very proactive, and in terms of sharing your thoughts and your experiences. And we have here from Srini, who is the CEO of Cogent, the mastermind of Let Us Talk It. Mentioned that it was an awesome session and delivered with clarity. Already. Okay, so yes, contact details. Yes, Satya, the contact details is on the chat. Yeah, please feel free to save Sunita's number. Okay, so I guess everything is all good. And Ravi, thank you for letting us extend a little time with the session with Sunita. So I'll close the session. Again, thank you so much, everyone, for joining in. And please expect another topic for next Wednesday. So we hope to see you again and join us with 2 new exciting topics and 2 new speakers that we will be having. So thank you so much, everyone, and keep safe always.